Welcome to Riley Reacts to Season 8, Episode 5. Few things before we get into the reaction. Number one, I noticed that you guys were not as down for the format of last week's video. You missed the real-time reactions. So I changed that. I added those reactions back, but I blended it with this new format a little bit more. You'll see. Let me know what you think of it. I really appreciate your comments and like what you guys want to see and what you think is interesting about these videos. As always, I will be answering one of your questions at the end of this video, so stick around for that. And if you want me to answer one of your questions in a future video, comment your question down below about anything I talk about in this episode or just about life in general. But I tend to usually stick to questions about the next step because, you know, that's what we're here for. Now, we're gonna get into the reaction, but before we do, I have to say, this is by far my favorite episode in this entire season so far, because it is just, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and I appreciated that, and you'll see why in a second. Anyways, let's jump into it. Previously on The Next Step. The next step has been #Dancelled by Maria, that judge lady who hates The Next Step, who wanted to control them but couldn't for whatever reason, or something like that. And Richelle feels like it's her fault since she agreed to be on the live stream in the first place. But while that's all going on, we're reminded that Kenzie and Richelle have a friendship and that Kenzie wants to be dance captain, plus Pete is there supporting her desire to go after that role. Cleo was cut. My prediction was that it would get in between her relationship with Jude somehow. Moxie, talent agent extraordinaire, is interested in signing The Next Step, but only if they can prove to every doubter that they're wrong. The doubters from Tiara Bling's following. And then there's the show. This is the whole thing that Richelle is trying to implement to try and like make The Next Step's name, bring it back to make people, to prove every doubter that they're wrong. You know, she's like, we're gonna do a show. My hope going into this episode was that we would learn what the game plan was with details. Like, what is her game plan here, you know? We start off the episode in Nick's office.
All right, Kenzie, come on in.
I love how Nick is always baking. Kenzie also makes it pretty clear that her heart really belongs as dance captain of this new troupe, because she like comes up with all these ideas.
I know you just read through the Dance Captain diary, so I wondered if you'd give me some ideas for the new team.
Of course, so I was thinking, maybe like a small group, with dancers of similar styles, of course. And then I had this dream the other night, it was like Jude, and it was Pete, and it was this huge mirror.
And then Richelle comes in and summons Kenzie.
Dancing around them, and it was kind of like...
Come on, Kenzie. It's time for my big announcement.
My prediction for this is that Richelle is gonna be really upset. There's gonna be like another chasm because Richelle wants to be like the leader of the troupe, but Kenzie has all these ideas and she wants to be the new dance captain for this other troupe. And so they're gonna kind of have to go their separate ways.
But I need everyone to believe in it just as much as I do, especially Kenzie.
I see. So Richelle's inner like complication then is about control. I want everyone to do it exactly the way that I want to do it. So I'm gonna force her to be a part of this like thing.
All I know is I'm having a tough time letting go of my dream of going to nationals.
Yeah, okay. In the other studio, Richelle has wrangled all the troops together from a troop for like a little powwow, but not before, of course, we see a song number from Shad.
I don't know why Richelle brought us in here, but Shad's song is amazing.
Ooh, the show. She's gonna tell us what the show is.
I knew that he was an incredible dancer, but he can sing too.
Is Piper gonna have a thing for Shad? Cause she's just the way she said that. He's a dancer. I didn't know he could sing too. Interesting complication. All I'm thinking is how to make it as complicated as possible for any character, because it's more interesting that way.
I hope the team finds this as inspiring as I do, because today's the day. We're starting a brand new journey together.
Oh, she kind of sounds like a cult leader, a little bit. Like, okay, we're all a part of this thing. We're gonna do this, and everyone's gonna, like, she's just assuming that everyone's gonna want to be on board, which they might be, but I feel like that's a bit misguided, because, like, there's no way that every single person on that team, and which is obviously, like, they've been setting it up that Kenzie, her best friend, is gonna be the person that's like, I actually don't want to do this.
We're gonna create our own show. It's gonna be called Step Inside, and it's gonna be a true story, the real story of how everything actually happened and how we stuck together as a team through it all.
We were thinking I can write the music and then you can choreograph some amazing dances.
Richelle is still technically our dance captain, and we need to stay a team. So I'm on board with following her.
This is a great opportunity for the team. We're going pro, baby.
Okay, she's still talking. I'm very confused still. So we get Richelle's details for the show, which is like, oh, it's a dance routine and we're gonna be dancing to Shad's song and you're gonna be auditioning for me and we're gonna put the show together. But the detail that stuck out to me the most was that it's called Step Inside because it's about these dancers and their lives at this studio preparing for the competitions. And it dawned on me that that's what this entire show is about. It's staged as a documentary about these dancers in this dance studio preparing for nationals. And I thought there was a missed opportunity there. They could have thrown to a pretend character, to a character behind camera, the person asking the questions during the talking heads perhaps, and that person could have been brought into the story, and they could have been like, Richelle could have been in the talking heads chair and been like, can I get the footage that you guys have captured to put together something? Can you guys help us out? Kind of like they did in The Office, where, like, as the seasons progressed and they pushed to season 8 to season 9, eventually the characters threw to the people behind the camera and were like, hey, could you help me out here? That's appropriate because those people are the experts. The people filming you right now have cameras, they have, and then it also gives a little bit more explanation as to why these talking heads exist, as to why this documentary crew is there in the first place. Because that's never really touched on at all. It's just sort of this, like, elephant in the room. We're filming this dance studio and they're going to nationals and we're not going to tell you why we're filming them. We're just filming them. It would have created also an opportunity for flashback episodes, because then they could go back into, like, old footage from that this documentary crew has been collecting for years about this studio. All this to say that I felt like that was a missed opportunity. And I'm sure they had their reasons, and maybe perhaps we're gonna figure out why they didn't go that route. Maybe they will do that later on, but I really, I think that's the thing that was bothering me about this show, because I'm like, well, this is already a show about you and your lives. You're now gonna make a show about yourself, so it's like they're really going away from that original format, which I think was part of the charm of this show to begin with, and I'm missing it, I think is maybe where I'm coming from. And of course I'm biased because I was in the first seasons, so. I'm also saying all of this assuming that there are things that they wanted to incorporate this season that I'm not considering, but I really think that was a missed opportunity. Kenzie is back in the studio watching the new troupe, practicing and yearning to be a part of it, and Nick enters.
Something I can help you with, Kenzie?
Yes. Non-marking tape for spotting. Do you have any?
For Step Inside.
Non-marking tape for spotting? What is that? I'm Googling it. For paint. So she's, okay, so that's the excuse she's giving, that she's painting the studio?
Things must be serious if there are adhesives involved. Was there anything in particular you're looking for? Because I have a huge variety to choose from. I always bring this bottle.
Watching the new A Troop reminds me of how
Nick steals the show for me every single time, without fail. He's given such a very simple idea. He loved baking shows, and he's clearly about, like, decorating and interior design and whatever. It's like, I feel like that's the sort of dude that he's playing here. And he's very passionate about helping out these kids, and he wants to do his best, but he doesn't always know the most about dance, so he kind of needs help from them at the same time. Just the choice to, like, have that dialogue as he's walking back and being like, oh, okay, so that means it must be really serious. Okay, so I've got all these different types of tapes, and he's, like, so serious about it, and it's just so, it makes it more charming, and like I want to follow him. I want to know what he's doing in that studio now to look for those, you know, which I just say kudos to Miles, because He's doing a great job with what he's given, because you can't always do much with the adult characters. The crack between Cleo and Jude begins, and the chasm starts to build a little bit as they try to connect over bubble tea, while Cleo is still kind of in her head about not making a troop, and she's not able to enjoy the moment because of that.
Seeing Jude go to nationals while I'm off the team is bittersweet. I mean, Jude's the sweet part, but pretty much every other part is bitter. And I can't tell her that. I don't want to bring her down.
And then Anthony puts his foot in his mouth.
I saw you at the audition. Yeah, and you're the dance captain. That's awesome. And you didn't make the team. I can't believe I just said that.
Oh, Anthony. I feel like we've all been there, where we've had positions where we like said something, we just blurt it out, and then you're like, oh crap. Having social anxiety, I can relate to that. So, oh, poor Anthony. And then Jude hints at a plan.
We've dreamed of going to nationals together. And maybe the dream doesn't have to be over.
What's she cooking up her sleeve, huh? And then the plan is revealed in the following scene, where Jude is like doing some sleuthing to be like, maybe we could get a second alternate on the team, and it could be Cleo. And then of course Nick is baking. Hey Nick!
Hi, Jude.
I just want to know what he's baking for. What is he baking for? Like, who's eating them? Is he entering some kind of baking competition himself? You know what would be a really fun but also kind of sad story is like, he's baking and he's going to be on this big show, but no one notices. Is he maybe going to display them or give them to the children? Is he going to be on the Big Time Bake Show? And then maybe he has a producer friend from that baking show who is also able to make them their show, like produce their show or something. Because, and he's like actually like really, I don't like that story. I don't like that idea. Never mind. Which I guess, and it doesn't really matter, but I'm still curious, what is he doing with these cakes? So then Jude ends up succeeding at getting her girlfriend a spot back on A Troop as an alternate.
Cleo was the last to be cut, so she should be the first in line to be the second alternate.
Well, sure.
Yes! Okay, thank you so much. It'll be great.
Can't wait to see the look on Cleo's face when Nick tells her she's back on the team. And I'm thrilled because I'm the one who made it happen.
That was really cute. But I think it's not going to end well. I feel like she's probably going to tell Cleo, and Cleo's going to be like, I don't need you to like vouch for me to get me back. Like, I wanted to earn it. I didn't want to be an alternate. I wanted to be on the team. Because that's Cleo's theme, is like about earning it and proving herself. And she's like, no, I auditioned and I did not get it. So don't try and like sneak me in a fake way or in a half way. Like, I'm either in or I'm out. I'm not half in. I'm not the alternate. It's also, you're always playing like the juxtaposition or like the oppositions. So it's like she's really excited about telling Cleo about this thing that she did for her girlfriend. But then when Cleo finds out, she's going to be like, it's going to be the opposite that she expects. You know what I mean? A Troop auditions for the center dance for Step Inside.
Awesome, great job. Okay, next up we have Heath.
Wow, that was so fast. They just put together routines in no time. How much time has passed? Wow, that even for the next step, that's quick.
I've gone from being an alternate on H Troop to Dance Mania and back. But
oh, that was cool. I like those three, whatever those jumps are called. I don't remember. I wanted to say axle jumps, but I feel like that's not accurate. I saw Finn in the scene, and it reminded me of this comment that I got a few videos ago that inspired me to do this like new segment on these reaction shows called Character Deep Dive, or Deep Dive, whatever, where I deep dive into a character. And I wrote it out, I like typed it out, and I'm just gonna read from the page because I wanted to be very specific and clear about my thoughts on this. It's no surprise that Finn is known as the comedic relief of the next step, given that he is always quite slow to pick up on social cues. When I first commented on this in an earlier video, I used the words Finn is written kind of dumb, and then I tried to re-explain my thought process, but got distracted halfway through. A common struggle of mine, perhaps Finn and I share that trait. However, it wasn't a very thoughtful way of explaining myself, so this is my second attempt at that, or rather third attempt. Again, this is why I wrote it down. As I mentioned earlier, someone made a comment that Finn could be neurodivergent and therefore doesn't have good social skills. This is a theory I like. It's an interesting plot point for the character, but it's not touched on in the show at all, which tells me that that wasn't the writer's intention. Allow me to explain this in even more depth. Finn is socially awkward, slow to pick up on cues. Yes, he could be smart, but maybe isn't very capable of showcasing that intelligence in front of others. And assuming the writers have never explained this as a specific thing he struggles with, I can only assume that isn't the case for this character. I wouldn't say that is a fair assessment to make for any character in all of film and television, like just because a character doesn't say it, it's not explicitly said in the scene, the actor could still have made a choice that that's something that the character deals with, and so they implement that into their work somehow. But given that the next step is known for their talking heads being the secret look into the character's thoughts and feelings, if a character on the next step has a problem with social anxiety, it would be discussed there. So based on just really season 8, because that's all that's fresh in my memory, it hasn't been touched on. He hasn't talked about social anxiety. It doesn't seem to bother him, so I'm assuming it's not an issue for him. But with this in mind, please do not take my opinion on this character as a statement of fact. I am merely speculating that Finn is probably not as educated as some of his peers. Again, strictly based on how he is written. Conclusion. I'm not saying that being slow to pick up on social cues or not having much of an education is a bad thing. I'm merely saying that it makes it more difficult to live in the world. I am speaking from the perspective of someone who also struggles with social anxiety at times. Finn could maybe be an example of this, though it doesn't seem to bother him all that much. If he does in fact struggle with it a lot, it would be interesting to hear more about it. Again, not sure if they already did that in this show, but only looking at season 8, it's safe to say that's not the case. And that's my deep dive into Finn. Thank you to Riona Wilson for your comment. I encourage anyone out there who has thoughts on anything I've discussed in any of my videos to share them in the comments below. It's really interesting to hear your perspectives. So back to 8 Troop auditions for the center dance.
Amy and Piper are so pumped for this dance, and I'm giving it my all, but there's just some part of me that still wishes we chose nationals. My heart isn't in this.
But like, wouldn't there be an interesting moment where she like talks to her other dancers like, hey, do you feel good about this? Like, this show thing, like, what do you think about it? Like, maybe she's asking other people their opinions to see if there's anyone else that's like not sure about it, and then she can be like, me too, and here's why. Like, she can find some support from other people, from other dancers. She's just coming to the realization she's gonna get there. It's gonna happen in an inopportune time.
Why'd you bring me here? Trust me, this is gonna be worth it. It's taking all my energy not to spoil the surprise. I can't wait to see Cleo's face when she finds out I got her back on the team.
Then, Cleo is given the good news.
I'll be in an alternate?
Well, second alternate. The first alternate we'll have to figure out later, but yeah.
Okay, wait, so I'm not good enough to be on the team, but I get to sit on the bench and watch? This is my worst nightmare. No, thank you.
Yeah, called that. And I understand Cleo's perspective. The chasm is getting bigger between them. You know? I don't know why I'm smiling about that. I'm happy that my prediction was right. I don't know why I have this weird thing where when I'm watching a TV show, I'm like, and I'm guessing, I'm like, oh, this is what's probably gonna happen. And it actually happens. I'm like, I was right. No big deal. Kenzie does an emotional solo. Oh! Emotional dance solo. And Richelle and Shad walk by. And at first I was like, why is it just these two? There's obviously a reason for these two coming to see her performance.
This solo is incredible. I'm really feeling the emotion.
And then I was like, oh, right. Oh, I get it. I get it. What's happening. They need Shad and Richelle to see her dancing in this really emotional way. And they're like, wow, this is beautiful. You're our center girl. You're the center dancer. So then it's like even worse for her because she's like, ah, crap. I don't want this. And I didn't want it from the beginning. Sorry.
If we make this dance the emotional centerpiece of Step Inside, this show could be amazing.
Called it. Obviously. It was like, I love how I'm like, I called it, but it was right before they said it and they were like alluding to it already. So you're like seeing it coming but I'm like, no, I called it. Anyways.
I can never tell anyone this, but I'm dancing because I want to dance with the new A Troop. I want to go to nationals, but I can't abandon the team.
Kenzie doing this solo kind of reminds me of like A Troop sticking around to try and make this show happen, and they're still at this dance studio. It makes me think about like the challenges that I think, or a lot of senior dancers in the competitive dance world have to deal with at some point. They're graduating and they have to be able to like grieve the loss of that massive part of their life. This format of like Richelle being like, we're gonna audition to like have the lead center dance and we're gonna make a show and whatever, is this group's opportunity to hold on to the next step and like what they had with this show. Like they're trying to save the name of the next step, but it's not their responsibility anymore. It's this new troupe and they need to like pass on the torch. It's time to move on. Anyways, I just thought that was an interesting storyline that could probably maybe happen for these dancers. Then we have Cleo and Jude in the dressing room. I love that there's a dressing room because that's like the safe space for the dancers to converse, and I thought that that was like a nice added touch that like they have these little intimate moments in the dressing room, because it is very much like the dancers' territory. Like the teacher or the studio owner is like not allowed to be there.
How are we supposed to do this when we're in two different worlds? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to, feel out what's right and be honest with each other. And that means talking, okay? Not try to fix everything on your own. Okay.
I really appreciated that. I just loved the way that that was written. It felt really real, and it was like a real issue that two young characters, two, young teens who this is probably their first relationship, and they're figuring out the like clunkiness of it. They're figuring out how to actually communicate with one another, and I really liked that. So I'm a fan of this storyline. And then I had a thought about Cleo maybe needing to leave this relationship.
I don't know how I can forget about A Troop when Jude is on the team. I don't know if our relationship can survive this. Things will be okay, even if I'm the only one going to nationals.
Ooh. Yeah, I kind of called it. Though I'm sort of sad because these two are like really good at their relationship, weirdly. Then we have Richelle prepping the troops of A Troop, or like the original, what do I want to call these? The graduating class, we'll call them, the graduating troopers, for the reveal of the first, what is it? Dance number thing for this show.
Nothing is more important than this show to us. Your dance is...
At what point will Richelle learn the lesson that she needs to not assume that she knows what's best for everyone around her, Because that's not healthy. And yet in this instance she can, but Kenzie's the one person that's like going against that, and so I'm interested to see her reaction. Kenzie then makes a bold move.
I'm gonna be your new dance captain. I know it's a bold move walking into Nick's office and telling him I want to be dance captain. But if I don't take this risk, I'll never know what will happen.
I mean, it's a good shot. It's a good assumption that he would just be like, okay, because he just kind of lets the dancers decide what they want to do with their time anyways, and like with the troupe and stuff and like choreographing, he gives them a lot of freedom.
Kenzie would be a top-notch dance captain. She's got experience, she's a great dancer, she's a born leader. What's not to love?
I'm all in.
Welcome to the team, dance captain.
Wow. So then who are they kicking off of A Troop? Or I guess they don't know who the alternate is yet, so maybe they are gonna have two alternates. I'm shocked. I'm shocked, one, that worked, that she just like walks in, says, I want to be dance captain. He's like, yeah. And then I had an even more interesting idea, that what if Kenzie tells Richelle and the elders, I'm gonna call them the elders, the elder A Troop, the elders, because they're old. She tells the elders, I don't want this anymore. I still want to be a part of A Troop and like this dance studio. I'm gonna be dance captain. Bye. And then she goes to Nick, assuming he's gonna say yes, and then he says no, and she has nothing left. Anyways, I just thought that was an alternate path that they could have taken. That would have been interesting as well. But they have other plans, clearly. That's another song. That's an old song. Work, 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 work. What was that from? What was the original dance to that song? Like, it was an earlier season. It was season 4, wasn't it? I remember doing some sort of hip-hoppy jazz funk something to it. Work, work. Take it to the top. That's what it is. take it to the top. And then it reminded me of a fun fact about the Next Step songs is that every season they usually will bring in a like music producer guy, and they'll take like popular songs of that year or whatever, and they'll be like, hey, could you make us like a version of this song? And so that's why the songs are like always bops. The songs are really good on the Next Step. They're like fun pop kid songs. Speaking of songs, I am a work of art. No way, she sings? I had no idea Cleo sings, or that actor sings. Danny is her name. I haven't told this story yet. I actually met Danny in person at the mall. I was at the Eaton Center buying Levi's jeans, and she happened to be working there that day. So she was helping me get my jeans. She was like, I was like, do you mind if we get me a different size? And I was looking at her, and it was like a year or two after I had filmed season 7 reaction. So like I hadn't been looking at her face a lot. So like I didn't recognize her right away. I was like, she looks familiar. I don't know why. And then she was just doing her job. She like went to get me a different size and came back, and then was like kind enough to be like, oh, by the way, I know you from the Next Step. I was like, no way. She's like, yeah, I'm actually on it. I play Cleo. I was like, oh my gosh, that's where I know you from. And so I got to meet Danny, and she was lovely, and it was very nice. And the jeans that she sold me were super comfortable and great. So thinking about what it takes to be good enough. Yeah, you know we are. This is such a good song. One, who knew Cleo could sing? Was this a thing that she already had? That we've already known and I forgot. And two, she just wrote a song. She just like made a song and like produced it, and it's like really good. It's like funky. It's like perfect for the Next Step. It's such a great song for the Next Step. It's just like, okay, new prediction. Piper and Amy see that she sings, and they're like, you know what would be great to make this like show better or like more interesting or whatever is, what if we bring in Cleo and then she does a duet with Shad, so then Cleo can still like be a part of a performance group, and it ends up being with Shad. I keep bumping this, sorry. That's fun. Then this happens with Cleo and Jude.
When I see Jude out in the crowd while I'm singing, it reminds me that we're meant to be together.
Oh. Okay. I just don't like it when the tension is diffused, because then it's like, what's the point? Like it is nice though that they're together and that they're like gonna make it work, they're gonna try. I don't know, man.
So are you ready to work on your solo? I mean, we have to start today, but you must be so excited. This is such a big moment for you. I'm
Richelle.
so excited. Yeah.
I'm not doing the solo, and I can't be in the show anymore.
Ooh, I like it. She gets right to the point. And then I kind of went on a rant about Richelle. I was like, dude.
What? Kenzie, we gave you the biggest solo, the biggest piece of the whole show.
You cannot just assume that everyone wants to do what you want to do.
We as a team decided that Nationals wasn't the choice this year. You remember that, right?
You didn't give anyone an opportunity to like voice their opinion on it. And because you are kind of like the leader of this group, everyone's just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll do this, but you're not considering how everyone else feels about this idea. And the fact that your best friend now wants to do this other thing, Richelle kind of like loses it. But it's an interesting choice for her to get angry because, yeah, it's a bit complicated and like messy for them because it's like they're friends. And so Richelle feels betrayed because she's like,
you know, we're supposed to be chasing this dream together, right?
But then Kenzie is like, well, yeah, I should have come to you first, but
dreams change.
I am pleased that they didn't diffuse the like tension of that moment, that Richelle was actually like pissed about it.
Okay, if this is your final decision, then I have a lot of work to do. So I'll see you later.
Richelle.
So, final thoughts are, we have Cleo and Jude say they're fine, but maybe they're not fine. Maybe there is still going to be a little bit of something between them. I don't know. Who knows? And then we have Richelle and Kenzie, their friendship falling to bits. Juicy stuff for a children's show. Also, where was Pete through this whole thing with Kenzie? You'd think that if they have this like thing going on that maybe she would have turned to him. Oh yeah, and then I wrote this, which I thought was fun. I liked this episode. It felt fuller than the others, like more storylines to follow and complications that come to a conclusion while others were boiling. Overlapping storylines like this makes it more interesting and less of a disappointment when the tension fizzles, because just like Nationals, there's more tension right around the corner. Ah, nice. Now time for the question. This question is brought to me from Amelia Naomi, and she, or they, whoever, this person asks, do you prefer the early seasons or do you prefer the later seasons, and why? I prefer the earlier seasons. And I'm incredibly biased because I was in them. From what I have heard from the people who are still involved in the making of the show, is that as the seasons progress, they've gotten less and less time to like do the routines. Like, as in time between, hey, we're gonna do a new season, and okay, now we're filming. The time is like next to nothing. And so there's not a lot of time to write, there's not a lot of time to rehearse the dances, there's not a lot of time to cast people. Like, it's really, really difficult for them to make the same kind of magic, I think, that they made in the earlier seasons. Like any show, it kind of becomes its own machine where it kind of runs on its own. Everyone knows what the show is, they know what to expect, they understand the kind of tropes that exist, and so you just kind of follow that formula. Again, because they have to, because they don't have time. And I say this a lot. The moments in season 1 where they did not plan to film, but they decided to film us rehearsing a dance or us talking to each other in a corner or whatever, and they just interject those into the episode. And I also think that my all-time favorite season was season 1, and I say this all the time, because none of us knew what to expect. All of the actors or all of the dancers who were on the show were just kind of doing our thing. We weren't really thinking about how it's looking or what it's gonna be like when it's up, when people watch it. We weren't thinking people were gonna watch it. Like, we were just doing it, and it made for really interesting stuff. Then as the shows progress, we are now like, oh, now we're like performing, and I think there's like a different mental space that exists there, because you kind of do have to like remove the self-consciousness that exists. And so that's why I like the earlier seasons better. However, when you bring in newer characters, I think they sometimes bring some of that magic back, and when they just film the actors doing whatever it is that they want to do. And like then they put that in, like that one talking head with Izzy where they like see their friend Daisy, and Daisy comes into it and they like dance. Like, that stuff, that's the magic stuff that they don't have as much of because they don't have as much time, therefore they're not given as much freedom to play. Ben just said something interesting. He said, it's like a first date. It's exciting, it's new, you don't know what to expect, you hope it's good, you hope it goes well, and then there's chances for it to surprise you, versus you've been together for 8 years and you know you're going on a date and you know what to expect. All things considered, I think they're doing a great job. If I had to choose, I would choose the earlier seasons. So yeah, thank you, Amelia, for that question. And to anyone else watching, still, congratulations on making it all the way through. I appreciate it. And also, ask any questions you would like me to answer in a future video below. That's everything. I'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye!